Rosanne Tan is one of the many great editors on Mr. Robot who edited some key episodes in this final season. I'm Kevin Jacobsen of Gold Derby, here to ask you, what were your feelings just heading into this final season of Mr. Robot as far as, helping give this show a fitting conclusion?
So I worked on season 3, and I knew I wanted to come back to season 4, and coming back, I'm a huge fan of the show. So I think season 4 was going to be a huge challenge, and I was up for it. I was excited, nervous, I think all the feelings, and I wanted to do a good job. And I knew it was going to be a great season, lots of twists and turns. And even just before reading the script, I just knew, Sam would and the writers would be creating something amazing for all of us to come back to.
Mm-hmm. And I want to start with just the very first scene of the very first episode you edited this season, the season 4 premiere, because I specifically remember watching it at the time and seeing the previously on segment that transitioned so seamlessly to the first scene with Angela and Philip, and it took me a few seconds to realize, it started, because it was just so seamless. Can you just tell us about that choice to do it that way?
Different ideas were sprung around, and I think at one point Sam's like, let's try this. And so yeah, to make it seamless, and for stuff that was shot in season 3, and then to kind of join it with stuff that was shot in season 4. So that was like, okay, huge challenge, let's do it. And I think also musically, Matt Quayle's score had to bring us kind of out of the recap into the show itself. So we did many things, and I'm so glad it worked out. And yeah, it was a huge surprise, and we wanted it to be a surprise for the fans. And I'm glad it worked out, because it really, like, okay, where are we now? Oh, we're actually into the show. So I'm glad you feel that way.
Yeah, it's very cool. And there's also a great sequence in the premiere where Elliot is blackmailing the lawyer who's working with the Dark Army, and we have Mr. Robot in the Grand Central Station, like, communicating with the lawyer, and it's eventually revealed that Elliot is doing all this from his computer, and he's like sitting on a subway train. It's all very clever, very suspenseful kind of sequence. What's the process behind editing like really tense and sort of complicated scenes like that?
Well, I think with everything with Mr. Robot, Sam wants the editors to be super creative, and I think with anything, with any episode, it's a huge challenge, and you want to present the best thing to Sam. And I think for the Grand Central thing, we have to keep it intense, and there's so much footage and so much great performance to work with. So it's like, just honing down on the great performances from Mr. Robot and Elliot, and then trying to create that tension. And a lot of it has to do with, sound design and music as well. So whenever we present anything to Sam, it's like first impression counts. So it was a lot about just creating that, that mood, the tension, and then finally the big reveal. We worked on it on many versions of that. It's like, how do we cut to Elliot on the train? It has to be like this nice little transition from sound. And yeah, it was really fun and very challenging. And at the end of the day, it was super rewarding when it all came together. So huge collaboration.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, working with sound design and music, you also edited one of the big standout episodes of the season, I think episode 5, which fans might remember as just the one without any dialogue, where Elliot and Darlene are breaking into the building. And it's such a major showcase of just like building suspense and like a ticking clock sort of thing, and just communicating everything through visuals and timing the cuts to the music. So, I mean, what was your first response to just learning that you were going to have to do this whole episode with no dialogue?
When I was told I was doing that episode, I was excited and also nervous, because I also worked on season 3, the one take episode. So that was both of them are huge challenges, and it's like, how do I tell the story? And and it's gonna have to be seamless with music and score and how the cutting works, and you know, it is a challenge when there's only 2 lines of dialogue, you know, at the front and at the end, right? So the story was so great, and there's a heist, and there's so much action, and I am so grateful to be working with, you know, actors like, you know, Rami Malek and Carly Chaikin and, you know, Michael Christopher. They all deliver great performances, and with that, it was just, okay, let's construct the story, and how do I present to Sam the first time, because it's like a pitch, right? And I remember having to think about the, you know, how I would bring the episode musically, and just to bring in the diehard of it all. And I remember it was like 3-4 in the morning, and you know, it wasn't scripted to have that whole diehard ode to joy. And I remember, you know, what if I try that, and maybe Sam will like it, because, you know, in the middle of the movie, when the guards, you know, at Virtual Realty are watching Die Hard, you know, that could be cool to try something like that. So I remember having to find the soundtrack Ode to Joy, you know, Michael Kamen's version of it, the alternate score version of Beethoven's Ode to Joy, and then trying that at the beginning to tell that story, and it really worked. So things like that I would get excited about, and then it's like, okay, I hope Sam will like it. And then, of course, trying to tell the whole story, and, you know, when I first present to Sam, I have to basically temp with music and try all the sound design, and it has to sell. And because there's no dialogue, it really has to sell. So again, yeah, big challenge, and I was super excited, and then in the end, I'm so glad how it all turned out.
Yeah, absolutely. And so speaking to that a little bit, how involved are you as far as just like implementing where to put in music cues on an episode, especially with the score? Because this is a show that I think really values that kind of underlying score so much. And, you know, with those kind of music cues, do you come up with suggestions based on just what the music department's created, or is it all just kind of funneled down from Sam Esmail's vision?
So it's a lot of, you know, Sam wants the editors to present something at the beginning, right? With our first presentation, when the cut's put together. So we have to put our music, sound design, basically when he sees it as a presentation, it has to be as perfect as possible. And that's great, because it makes us as editors, it challenges us and want to do our best work. So basically when you watch it, it has the temp sound, has the temp music. And this is before Matt Quayle does his magic at the end. So we have to tell the story. So when he's watching it, it's like a full finish episode in some way. So we temp in music, we temp in sound. So for example, there are things that stay, like the Ode to Joy that I temped in for 405. And it's telling the story, and then we, you know, basically licensed it and got it. So the editors have a lot to do with that. And, you know, we're working with my colleagues are great with that as well, and they inspired me. You know, I want to just shout out to the editors as well, Joel Pashby, Melissa Lawson-Chung, and Justin Crone. They all inspire me when we all show each other work of our, you know, what we did for the scene, and its sound design and its music is always very polished. And then we show it to Sam, and we're hoping that Sam likes it. So we all have a lot to do with all that. And then at the end, you know, the sound design team takes it to another level. Great people. And then Matt Quayle and his team takes it over and does his own thing. So Sam has a lot to do with it, obviously, his world that he's created. And then we also have, you know, our associate producer, Sean Schuyler, and also our producer, Greg Tilson. We're all involved, and but definitely the editors. The editors are all creating this world, and then we're showing Sam. And then we go from there, and we kind of collaborate, and then just kind of make it even better as we go forward. So music, everything's all in.
It's really interesting. Yeah. And then you also edited episode 8, which is where Elliot finds his father's key. It's also the episode where Janice ties up Darlene and Dominique, and that's its own tense sort of situation. Yeah. So tell me about the process of just editing that episode, especially that storyline with Janice and that whole thing.
I mean, Ashley Atkinson was amazing, wasn't she?
Oh, yeah.
And with, you know, Grace Gummer as well. And they both worked really well together, the chemistry and everything. That episode was really fun. It was the opposite of kind of this crazy tension, kind of horror, you know. then you got the really emotional thing with Elliot and his father and Mr. Robot. And it was just again, it was just trying different things, and yeah, it was so great at the end, and I'm just glad that, you know, it was such an emotional episode, and also I got to kill Janice basically. So, yeah, it's truly great. All the amazing performances that we would get from everybody, and it's like, you know, what do we use, and then we hone in on that at the end when I'm working with Sam. Yeah, I'm really lucky to be able to work on 3 really great episodes this season. So
yeah. And with this show, there is this unique element where we're seeing Elliot as well as other versions of himself, kind of, whether it's his younger self or Mr. Robot or an identical version of himself. Plus, you know, there's this big expansive plot with the Dark Army and White Rose, and I think things could get quickly muddled, let's just say, as far as keeping track of everything that's happening. And I think it could run the risk of being a little too confusing to just keep up with as a viewer. So are there any tricks that you have in the choices you make just as an editor to, I guess, just help the viewer understand what's happening, but also not be too obvious or hand-holding about it?
Well, you know, it's all from this world that Sam Esmail has created, right? That man's a genius. And it's basically Elliot with his dissociative identity disorder. And because of that, and he's the narrator, we can't trust what he sees ever. So I think that gives us the chance to try different things, and that allows us to, okay, you know, in this section, let's try split screens, and let's see how we can do this hack and make it more interesting. And it's really great, because I've worked on many shows where, you know, I don't get to dive into all these different styles and just try to think outside the box as much as possible and do something so different, you know, almost each time, and still keeping grounded and you know, within the show. And it's just so much fun, and also tough, believe me. I enjoy it. I enjoy the challenges. And again, it's like, sometimes I'm sitting there, I'm just like, what do I do with this? Let's see, what can I create? What can I do with this? Like with 405, again, it's no dialogue, huge challenge. And then that sequence with the hack, you know, thankfully I have 2 amazing assistant editors on that, Caroline Wang and Zach Dame, who helped me out with that. It was great. It's like, okay, he's basically trying to do this mold thing, and how do we tell that story quickly, but also in a very fun way? So we're trying different things with split screens. You know, it's just fun, and again, it's all because of Sam Esmail and the world he created and what he expects from us editors, and to be creative as possible. I truly enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, the style of just how the show moves and how the show is edited, I think, was kind of largely established before you joined in season 3. So I was just curious how you balanced, you know, sticking to that style, but also doing it your own way, sort of thing.
I think, you know, there is a style that was created, but I think we kind of use that and also evolve from that. So it's just, you know, trying different things. And I think we're all fans of the movies, you know, and seeing things from what in the past and what we can bring to it. And I think every editor has their own unique voice, and Sam has a voice. And I think it was, you know, I think it's from what I've learned in the past and from what I'm learning with Sam, and watching other editors and getting inspired and just taking in what I can bring to it. It's fun. Until I see the material and then what I can bring with the material, it's hard to describe, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Robot is over now, sadly, and I'm curious, just from your perspective, how you think the show has just left its mark on the television landscape, and if you have any just lasting thoughts on the impact that it's had over these past 4 seasons. I
think it really brought television to another level. It didn't even feel like television to me, because it felt like mini movies. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I first watched the first season, and it was just like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. This is so different. Just from every perspective, right? With picture, with music, with sound, it's just so different. And every episode's different. Second season was different. Third season was different. And I really hope that, if people haven't watched yet, they will pick it up at one point. And I know the fans that did watch, they basically started from season 1 and kind of followed through. And I again, it's just, it was so creative. I was really happy to be a part of it. I remember when I first got the job, it was like, oh my gosh, my dream came true. I get to be on something amazing. So to be able to finish it off and be a part of the team that finished the last season off was really, I'm grateful for that. And I really hope that if people haven't started, they will watch it someday. And, they can stream it now. So it's you can go binge and go from 1 to 4 in like a week maybe, or 2 weeks, because there are a lot of episodes.
Yeah, super bingeable show. Absolutely. And just as we wrap up here, you were nominated at the Ace Eddie Awards for your work on Mr. Robot earlier this year. And you also were previously nominated for Homecoming, another Sam Esmail show. What was it like to just get that kind of acknowledgement from your peers, your fellow editors?
It is insane. It's a dream come true. It's unbelievable. I mean, I've wanted to edit for a very long time, and to be able to be recognized by my peers, and it's just, I keep pinching myself, and I'm so happy that I get to do amazing shows like, Miss Robot, Homecoming, and just be nominated for it. I just couldn't believe it. It's, I don't know, I keep telling myself, like, is it real? It's like what Elliot go through, right? Is this real? Is this happening? And I've always been very, I don't know, it's just, I still can't believe it. So.
Yeah, it's well, you did some great work this season, so I think it's deserved. But thank you so much, Rosanne, for talking to us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I just want to say one last thing that,
Sure.
Again, it's a very collaborative process, and I'm thankful for everybody that's, it's included in the success. So it's not just me. It's a great teamwork from everybody around.
Yeah. Well, for those watching at home, if you like this video, hit like and subscribe for more interviews just like this, and head over to goldderby.com and start making your Emmy predictions. Thanks again.
Thank you for having me.